All right, so we are with Mary Salinas and Suzanne Spencer today, and they're going to present Wildflower Conservation Success. And Mary grew up gardening with her mother and grandmother and has never stopped. At home, she loves to try new crops and varieties in her vegetable garden and is passionate about growing perennials, especially native milkweeds, and watching new generations of monarch butterflies take flight. Later in life, she earned a BS and MS in environmental horticulture at the University of Florida and pursued a new career. She has been the residential horticulture agent and master gardener volunteer coordinator for Santa Rosa County Extension for 9 years until her upcoming retirement in January 2022. We are going to miss you, Mary. Suzanne Spencer. Suzanne has been a certified Florida Master Gardener volunteer since 2015 and currently serves as vice president of the Santa Rosa County Master Gardener Association. She was chosen as the 2019 Volunteer of the Year by the Florida Wildflower Foundation for her wildflower conservation efforts and implementing a roadside wildflower program in Santa Rosa County. In addition, she earned the 2019 Award of Excellence for Outstanding Florida Master Gardener, in part due to her involvement in the county's wildflower program. A native of Santa Rosa County, Suzanne is a former science educator and small business owner who remains involved in managing her family's timberland. All right, well, take it away.
Well, thank you so much. And good afternoon to all of you wildflower enthusiasts. Suzanne and I are so very pleased to have you join us today for this discussion about our program's success in conservation of roadside wildflowers and how you in your county can do just the same. This afternoon, we will look at the overall statewide conservation program, why it's important, and how it works. And then we'll explore the many and the varied benefits that this program provides. Suzanne will then come in to talk about how we implemented this program in Santa Rosa County, up here in the Western Panhandle, and how it can be a model for implementation in your county. The success that we've had with this program has really been phenomenal in so many ways. Essentially, the numbers of wildflower species have greatly increased, in addition to just the sheer numbers of wildflowers along some of our roads that we have included in this program. Now, in Extension, we're all about building partnerships with other organizations in order to maximize the successes that we have. In this case, these partnerships have really been crucial. The Florida Wildflower Foundation has tremendous leadership and all kinds of resources to get programs started in individual counties, and then continuing support to really make them a continuing success. So the place to start is with getting a program started in a particular county is to get with the Florida Wildflower Foundation. They have so many resources on their website. You can take a look at that page and get a better idea after this program is over. The Florida DOT is, of course, a key partner for wildflower conservation along the state roads. And then we coordinate with our county Department of Public Works in managing the county roads for conservation of our naturally occurring wildflower populations. In our county, it was Suzanne Spencer, Master Gardener Volunteer, and me that brought the program to Santa Rosa County and made it work. Certainly, there are all kinds of other partners out there, and they could include native plant societies, garden clubs, community groups, or other kinds of environmental groups that may want to also get involved. And in some counties, it has been some of these other groups that have initiated the program and gotten it coordinated within their county without the help of Extension or Master Gardener volunteers. But really, this is a great program for Extension and Master Gardener volunteers, as we'll show you today. So what is this Wildflower Conservation Program anyway? Well, simply put, when you reduce the mowing along the roadways and mowing only at a certain time of the year, that leads to an increase in the naturally occurring wildflowers that are there along the roadways. Many times it takes a few years for wildflower populations to build and become abundant and really stand out and make a difference. But sometimes, and this has happened in our county, depending on the weather and the existing seed bank, populations of wildflowers along some roads can increase greatly within just a year or two. Now, this program does not include the preparation and planting of new wildflower seeds in landscape beds along the roadways. And although that is a very worthy project that's been done quite a bit, that is a more expensive strategy than this program pursues. So let's get a little perspective on the need for wildflower conservation along our roadways. Our population here in Florida is always growing. And I understand certainly why they keep coming. You know, I love it here. I'm a transplant myself. But all that growth puts a lot of pressure on our natural resources, and we lose natural habitat to development at an alarming rate. I'm sure you all see it in your communities. That loss of natural habitat can be devastating to our native flora and wildlife. Habitats that once consisted of countless continuous acres of undisturbed forest and wetlands and prairies gets chopped up into smaller and smaller pieces. Wildlife and plants get forced into those smaller pieces where they face more limited resources, competition, crowding, and stress. As patches of those native habitats diminish in size, they're less likely to provide food and shelter and space that our creatures need to survive. Small patches also are more prone to the effects of catastrophes, such as fire coming through or severe weather like hurricanes that can wipe out local small populations. And then when that distance amongst all these patches increases, the diversity of species moving from patch to patch decreases, leading to inbreeding and extinctions. So in order to counter this fragmentation, connecting habitat really is key. Making corridors to connect the pockets can rebuild functional ecosystems and conserve biodiversity, thereby knitting these landscapes back together. Home landscapes have tremendous capacity to provide habitat for wildlife and native plant species upon which they depend. Even though each home landscape may be small in comparison, when you add them all up together, they can make a huge impact. There are tens of thousands of miles of utility easements that can provide that service of connecting habitats as well, if they are managed properly. But today we're going to look at roadsides and how they can provide valuable corridors as habitat for plant and animal species. Specifically, we're most interested in this program in our native wildflowers and the insects that depend on them for survival. And of course, we depend on some of our native pollinators for our crops and uh, helping out our native populations of plants as well. The United States has millions of miles of roadsides, and it costs an incredible amount of money to maintain them. Think of the cost, the tremendous cost of the machinery and the gas and the oil and the parts and the labor required to continually keep these roadsides mowed and looking what some people would call neat and clean. It's an incredible expense to us as taxpayers. But rather, these roadsides can be managed differently to lessen the financial burden on taxpayers while still providing places for wildflowers and insects to thrive and to spread throughout the habitat. Changing how often and when the roadsides are mowed can make a substantial difference. So let's get into the specifics of how that works. Let's look at this typical roadway. Along each side of the roadway, there's a safety strip of grassy area that's there to provide a safe place to pull over for emergencies or any other reasons that motorists have while they're traveling along their routes. That 10 to 15 foot safety strip does need to be continually mowed for the safety of travelers. But then there's that wide backslope area of vegetation that really doesn't need to be mowed for safety reasons. These grassy areas beyond the safety strip can be managed to promote our naturally occurring wildflowers. In our program, those areas are only mowed once a year in the winter, and this full right-of-way mowing in the winter helps spread the seeds from the wildflowers over a wider area. And also it controls any kind of woody growth, little trees and shrubs that manage to, germinate and arise during that year. Let's look at some of the major benefits to our ecosystem. We have such a wonderful variety of naturally occurring native wildflowers. Let's give them more habitat to conquer. And imperiled and endangered species also get a chance to thrive in these areas. And Suzanne is going to show you a few more of those later on in the presentation. And those wildflowers provide food for our native pollinators and other insects. The reduced mowing encourages more dense plant growth, and that prevents erosion and problems with water runoff. The denser native plant growth, along with the less frequent disturbance of the soil, because you know how those mowers disturb the soil when they come plowing through there, that actually lessens the chance for invasive species to come in and take over in an area.
Mary, we're getting some feedback. Is there like a crackling noise or something? Might need to get a little closer to the microphone. It sounds like wind, actually.
Okay, well, we don't have any wind in here, so I'm not really sure.
That's better already.
Okay. it could be my internet connection. Let's see, where was I? I was going to talk about air quality. So air quality can also be improved as fewer contaminants are being released into the air from reduced mowing operations. And as I mentioned before, there are also benefits to us as taxpayers. According to a study done by the Florida DOT in 2008, it was estimated that reduced mowing could save $1,000 per mile per year. That's an amazing number, and I was amazed personally by that number when I learned about that. I think that currently we have about 63 miles of state and county roadsides here in our program in Santa Rosa County. And that really is just a few of the roads that we have. But even with that few, we're saving the state and the county together about $63,000 a year. Talk about your impacts. When we add roads to our system, to our program, that is going to increase the economic savings even more. And then, of course, it is just so much more beautiful to have these gorgeous wildflowers blooming along our roadsides. It's so much more pleasing for us living here, and then it's also so much more inviting for the tourists who come to visit our beautiful state. There are benefits for us professionally as well. In our individual counties, we strive to demonstrate our usefulness to our local stakeholders and our leaders by making our counties more beautiful, more sustainable, all while reducing expenses. So this is a great way to have a really good interaction with your local leaders. For agents, it's getting close to ROA time. Think about how you can report outcomes, impacts, and success stories after you've had this program for a year or two. Feel free to get in touch with me for more details if you're interested in that. And for both agents and volunteers, many opportunities for awards can arise also from your involvement. As you heard in the introduction, Suzanne was given the honor of Volunteer of the Year by the Florida Wildflower Foundation for her fabulous work, not only in our county implementing the program and overseeing it and making it a success, but also sharing it with people outside of our county. And it was also one of the reasons why she was awarded Master Gardener Volunteer of the Year statewide as well. And the local newspapers and TV stations have done multiple stories on our wildflower conservation program. And that makes it look really good. It makes our county look really good. The county commissioners, our county public works department, extension, and master gardeners. So now let me hand it over to Suzanne Spencer.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay there?
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you and I'll give you some more details about our program here in Santa Rosa County. It all started with what's called a Wildflower Resolution. And the first Wildflower Resolution was passed in Wakulla County back in 2009 due to a grassroots effort by local citizens who insisted that wildflowers on some of their roadsides not be mowed during the growing season. Wildflower resolutions empower counties to request the Florida DOT to reduce mowing on state roads in their counties as a means to conserve wildflower populations. Santa Rosa County learned about these wildflower resolutions and reduced mowing programs in June of 2016 at a meeting that was attended by Master Gardener representatives and our Public Works Director, along with other wildflower enthusiasts. Our Public Works Director then, Stephen Furman, felt like this was a really great program, and he's the one that proposed the Wildflower Resolution to the Santa Rosa County Commissioners. And they were pretty receptive to this, mainly because it was not going to cost any money to implement. It was promoted as a program that would beautify our county and save money by reducing mowing frequencies. It was considered a win-win program for all involved, and Stephen called this his happy project as we went along throughout the years that it's been going on. So the Santa Rosa County Board of Commissioners passed our resolution that June. Here's the main statement of the resolution, which encourages citizens to commit to the conservation of native roadside wildflowers. It instructs the county staff to work together with citizens and property owners to implement a roadside management practice program that would increase the visibility and enjoyment of our native wildflowers. Once the resolution passed, we worked with our program partners in choosing which roads would be included in the reduced mowing program and how that mowing schedule would be modified on the designated roads. The Master Gardeners and Santa Rosa Extension partnered with the Public Works Department at the local level to implement the program. And this was a perfect partnership because we have such a close cooperative relationship between Extension and Santa Rosa County government. The Santa Rosa County Master Gardeners organization monitors the wildflowers, educates our residents, and coordinates with our partners. The resolution also made it possible to partner with the Florida DOT and to request that they add state roads in our county to their wildflower management program. Adding state roads for management by Florida DOT comes about by the county requesting specific roads and areas on the roads to be placed in the state program. They have a really good program throughout the state for state roads. So the Florida DOT will survey those requested roads and decide if it's suitable for their program, and then they will write a management plan and take over managing that road as they see best. And then, as Mary mentioned earlier, the Florida Wildflower Foundation is a very important program partner. They promote the establishment of roadside wildflower programs throughout the state, and they're really the reason that we have our roadside wildflower program. So all of the partners work together to manage the program that's specifically designed for our county. Roads having wide rights of way with naturally occurring wildflower populations were chosen to be in our program. And here's a good example of one of our a road that has that wide right of way, and this road is in our program. These roads allow for plenty of room to mow that required 10 to 15 foot safety strip right along the edge of the road. So that safety strip is mowed on a regular schedule throughout the growing season, while the vegetation from that 10 to 15 feet from the edge of the road is allowed to grow throughout the wildflower seasons. A full right-of-way mowing is then conducted after the fall wildflower season. Usually that's sometime after Thanksgiving. Roadside wildflower areas are then marked with these signs indicating where the reduced mowing occurs. It's very important that these signs are in place and visible. And as Mary told you earlier, we do have about 63 miles of managed roadsides. We have 6 county roads and 3 state roads in our program. Again, here's a look at the specific reduced mowing guidelines that our county follows. Sometimes the guidelines can't be followed, so we practice what we kind of call adaptive maintenance practices that we have to implement when the guidelines can't be followed. And we've experienced a few of these kind of situations where the guidelines you see here weren't followed to the letter, and I'll tell you more about that as we get farther into the program. So the Santa Rosa County Roadside Wildflower Program actually became a project of the Master Gardeners here, with our main objectives being providing support to public works and to educate the public about what was happening. We support the efforts of Public Works by monitoring roadsides for compliance with the mowing guidelines and for proper sign placement. Monitoring occurs during the spring and fall wildflower seasons. Missing signs are reported as soon as possible to Public Works so they can be replaced. Sometimes people, I think, decide that they really like the looks of the signs, so they may take them, or sometimes they get pushed over by people running over them as they drive along the edges of the road. So it's very important that these signs are in place since they indicate the areas that should only have the safety strip mowed. Mowing practices, for the most part, have been found to be in compliance. However, we did have an incident in the spring of 2019 when an unauthorized mowing occurred on the road you see here. It was heartbreaking because the pitcher plants were just beginning to bloom. So we met with the mowing supervisors and we worked together on trying to make sure in the future that the signs are always in place and that the mowing crew is aware of these reduced mowing areas. And it did so happen that this sign was not in place when that unauthorized mowing occurred. This was really a learning experience for all of us. We learned that we need to have better communication, and the event also gave us the opportunity to actually monitor the growth of those pitcher plants on the roadside after having them mowed. And we found that the pitcher plants were doing just fine the following spring. Another thing we do is also monitor for invasive species, and we let the Public Works know so they can take care of that whenever we find them. So we go out and survey wildflower areas to locate, identify, and document wildflower species. This information is used for educational purposes to help us evaluate the program. And so the wildflower surveys have been conducted since the very beginning, since 2016. The surveys and monitoring the first full year provided us a baseline for comparison of wildflower species present and population changes that were expected to happen due to the reduced mowing. We do continue to schedule surveys throughout the wildflower season, and it's just a whole lot of fun to go out on what are really many field trips to see what flowers are blooming at the time. Locating wildflower populations, learning to photograph and identify wildflower species, and becoming familiar with the various wildflower habitats were the main activities during the first year of our program. Weekly wildflower surveys were scheduled so that master gardeners could become involved in learning to identify wildflowers and also become familiar with our designated wildflower areas. Since the beginning, we have compiled lists of wildflowers along our roads and developed checklists to help us know what flowers to look for during different times of the year. Promotion of and educating the public about the importance of protecting our native plants and wildflowers is a major objective of our program. This shows a display that was used at several events and an exhibit that was designed for our Master Gardener volunteer class of 2018 that was put up at our local interstate fair, and it was all about our county's wildflower program. We also conduct educational outreach through our public, to the public through our Master Gardeners Speakers Bureau. I've spoken to a Girl Scout troop and led them on a field trip at one point, and we're hoping to do a lot more of these things in the future. To further educate the public about our Roadside Wildflower program, the Master Gardeners presented this pull-up poster banner to the county commissioners in December 2019 to display in the lobby outside their meeting room at the County Administrative Center. This lobby gets a good bit of foot traffic since it's outside the tax collector's office. So we're hoping people that go in to pay their property taxes, renew their driver's licenses, and purchase tags are seeing our poster. We have the same banner on display here at our County Extension Office lobby, which we plan to use in outreach activities and upcoming events that feature our Wildflower Conservation Program. Now I want to show you some of what we've seen occur over the time our Roadside Wildflower Program has been in place and the benefits that we've seen it provide. So our program we're in our 5th year now of our program. This is a nice wildflower mix on one of our managed roads. So this is a kind of a common thing that we see now because of the reduced mowing. We've been seeing more and more wildflowers over the 5 years that our program has been in existence. And this photo shows several wildflower species growing on a section of road. Under our program, wildflowers are allowed to bloom and go to seed. And the late season mowing actually helps to spread the wildflower seed. The effects of reduced and selective mowing that began in 2017 became evident with larger populations of several wildflower species like you see here being observed the following spring. Here's a good example of one of our wildflower species, this Tracy's sundews that you see here and in the photo before, that blooms in great numbers if mowing is conducted at the right time. This spectacular blooming event occurs every year in the late spring, and it's just so fantastic to go out and see all these wildflowers along this road. It's a whole mile of road, and these flowers are on both sides of the road. The photos just cannot do justice to what an awesome sight this is when they're at peak bloom. Experience has shown us that mowing this area in early spring vastly reduces the blooming of this and other wildflower species. Now, this is the same area that had the unauthorized mowing event that I told you about. So very few of these plants bloomed in 2019. But they came back after that and continue to bloom each spring. So here's another example of what we've seen happen with our program. Under our guidelines, a full right-of-way mowing occurred in this area during the fall of 2017, with this fantastic bloom of purple thistles happening the next spring. We experienced another of those adaptive maintenance issues that I mentioned earlier when the guidelines that we have in place can't be followed. And that would happen because of an extremely wet fall and winter in 2018 and early in 2019. This area could not be mowed until March of 2019. Very few thistles bloomed that year, that April, and only those that had escaped the mowing during that mowing showed up. But we got back on track that year, a normal late season mowing occurred, and when spring 2020 came around, the area looked just like this again. So this really proves that mowing doesn't kill the plants, it's just mowing at the wrong time will interfere with the blooming. I just love this photo. It shows, this shows, in addition to the really pretty wildflowers you see here, it shows where the safety strip has been mowed there. If you look closely along the road, you can see where the safety strip has been mowed, and then all the lovely, spectacular wildflowers are growing there on that back slope. So this is another example of wildflowers that are now visible in springtime, whereas in the past this whole area would have been mowed on a continuous basis and we would not have been able to see these beautiful little pale grass pinks or the yellow colic root. Oh, another one of my favorite flowers. These gorgeous dark blue flowers of this lobelia species were located in early November 2017 in a roadside ditch. At that time, we found that these plants covered an area spanning approximately 50 feet. The following year, in October 2018, these lobelias were seen blooming along in that same area along about a span of 500 feet. And if you look closely, you can see those blue plumes sticking up of those lobelias. So I think that this is an area that really benefited from being mowed at the right time and spread that seed up and down this area. Okay, here's another one of my favorites, the beautiful Marshallia. Only a few of these barbarous buttons showed themselves in the summer of 2017. There were probably more around, but at this point in time, we didn't know much about the flower or even where to look for it. The next year, this species was found in great numbers on 2 of our managed roadsides. Again, you can see the area that's has the safety strip mowed. There are no flowers in that area, but there are plenty of them there in the ditch and on that back slope. These same flowers, as well as other species, are thriving now in the summer months along wet ditches. And this is a photograph I took of that same area this past August. In late fall, like right now, this is a common view of native sunflowers on Munson Highway. They bloom in spots up and down this highway, but there is one span of more than a mile where these flowers can be seen almost uninterrupted on both sides of the road. When this road was first surveyed for inclusion in our program, only a few of these flowers were seen on the back side of the ditch right along that tree line. This was because full right-of-way mowings had been conducted all summer long. Okay, now this is one of my favorite photos here because it really illustrates so well what our program is all about. This illustrates that if you mow, the flowers can't grow. Again, you can see where the county has maintained the safety strip adjacent to the roadway. You can also see where the landowner has mowed the back slope up to a certain area. So here's a close-up of the wildflowers that were in that unmowed area. Really nice wildflowers, and you can see stretching far down the road there. To me, this is much more preferable than seeing just a trimmed green roadway. And again, as mentioned earlier, here is something that's important to all of us, the savings and costs associated with reduced mowing practices. Studies done indicate that this is a reasonable estimate, this $1,000 per mile per year of savings and costs. And we have been recognized by our county administrator as having saved the county taxpayers about $210,000 over the first 3 years of our program. And then, as Mary mentioned earlier, reduced mowing frequency helps provide more habitat and food and resources for pollinators and other wildlife. So these are just some of the things that we have seen when we've been surveying for wildflowers. We've located several species of wildflowers that are listed as endangered or threatened. 2 pine lilies that you see here in the top corners are state threatened species. The white top pitcher plants that you can see here kind of scattered through the lower part of this photograph are state endangered species. Here's a nice view of the pine lily. This is the state threatened species, and we've seen this become visible on some of our, two of our roadsides due to the reduced mowing practices since it is a fall bloomer. So this plant is known to spread if it's not mowed down during the fall. And Santa Rosa County is home to the largest community of pitcher plants in this state. 4 of the 6 county roads and 2 of the state roads in our program have significant numbers of these plants present on the roadsides, and they're easily seen as you drive down the highways. Their presence was a major reason that we chose these roads for our program. So upon closer inspection, if you get out of your car and get down into the ditch, you can see these 2 other pitcher plants, the yellow pitcher plant and the state threatened parrot pitcher plant can be found growing in the wet ditches on 3 of our county roads. Our surveys have also revealed 4 species of native milkweed along the roadsides, and these are plants that we consider species of special concern. So we find the pine woods milkweed in drier areas, longleaf milkweed found in wet ditches. We've seen Michaud's milkweed found in both wet and dry areas, and the pineland milkweed in drier areas. These lovely flowers, both endangered species, can be seen in the spring and early summer along wet ditches in some of our designated wildflower areas. We're very happy with how well our roadside wildflower conservation program has worked out since it was implemented. And while we understood from the very beginning that it would take several years to see it become the success we hoped it would, we actually saw increases in wildflower populations during the first year of reduced mowing. I hope this information will inspire you to work in your county to promote, protect, and preserve your native wildflowers. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, both Mary and Suzanne. So we have a few questions in the chat box, questions and comments. So as you guys think about your questions, go ahead and put them in the chat box. And let's see, I'm going to go ahead and read some of these to you guys. So one comment is, and this was talking, I think, in the very beginning, every time I travel, I always wonder why we are not doing exactly what you're talking about. Kudos to you. So that's nice to hear. Leslie wants to know, can you spell the name of the plant you mentioned along the road? So I don't know which plant that was. Let's keep it going. Maybe she can describe it. Diane asks, is this existing native wildflower for your area, or do you plant and encourage other native species and remove invasive species?
These are all naturally occurring wildflowers here in our county, and that's what this program really is all about. It's locating naturally occurring wildflower areas and managing for those areas. We do not plant any wildflowers. Now, the state may plant wildflowers along the state roads, but they're very particular about where they get their seeds from. They get them only from local Florida sources.
What about removing invasive species as you guys go along?
We do contact the public works, and they will take care of those, and the state does the same thing.
Good. Have you ever spread additional seed, or is this all from reduced mowing?
It's all from reduced mowing. We do not apply any seed anywhere. Now, the state does, but we do not in our county.
Leslie says those pitcher plants are stunning. Thank you.
Yes, they are.
They are. Cindy says thank you for making a difference. Sean says your program has so warmed my heart.
Aw.
All right, well, that's all of our questions. Does anybody else have any questions? Actually, I'm going to go ahead and turn your options on if anybody wants to. Give me just a second. So if anybody has any more questions, you can either go ahead and turn them on. Leslie says that sounded like citra. The plant mentioned earlier sounded like citra.
No.
Maybe it was pitcher plants. Maybe that's what she was saying, or I was saying.
Maybe. So if anybody has any questions, we want to thank you for being here with us these last 2 days. Thank you for trying this new platform with us, for being brave and trying things out with us. We're very, we're excited to get back to in-person activities, and save the date for 3rd week of October next year, 2022, because we will be back in person. We're going to move the state conference to even years, and so that way it will have the regionals on odd years. So we'll be back in person in 2022, and after the state conference, 3rd week of October. Oh, let's see. Here's another question. What criteria help you to choose sites roadside?
So we look for roadsides that have wide rights of way, so that you do have, the area to mow the safety strip, and then able to leave the rest of that to go, for the wildflowers to grow. And we also just look for areas that have the naturally occurring wildflowers. So it takes some time and effort to go out and look, and it can be challenging, especially if you've had mowing going on all the time. So it's good to have somebody that really knows what to look for. And we did have a person, our friend Eleanor Dietrich, that came and went with us and to help us survey the roads, and she was really able to find things that we didn't know what to look for. So
good, thank you. All right, so I'll keep waiting for questions to come in. But I did want to ask all of you, what was one nugget from the conference that you loved and that you are going to take back to your county and your garden? What's something that you really found interesting and something new that you're going to try or go investigate more? Lisa Strange says she may contact you in the future to use the same theory on golf courses. It's a good idea. And actually, Adam Dale is doing some work on golf courses with some of this as well. So was there anything that anybody really loved about the conference that you learned, something new, some nugget that you'd like to take back and investigate more? Okay, well, it sounds like you guys are wrapped up for the day. So we're actually down to 9 minutes early. Who would have thought? So we again, thank you very much for being with us the last 2 days, and for trying out a new platform with us. And we know there were some technology struggles, but we got through it and we had a great conference. And so we're excited to be back in person again. So we'll see you soon, everyone.